Hello everybody, this is Pouria Zamzam, and today I want to talk about something important about getting a scholarship in Australian universities. And first of all, uh, I want to introduce myself to you. I am Pouria Zamzam, and I have gotten two fully funded scholarships from two well-ranked and well-known universities in Australia, Wollongong University and Adelaide University. And nowadays I'm waiting for my visa. To getting my visa, then I will immigrate to Australia to start and continue my studying towards Ph.D. as a fully funded scholarship PhD student. So I am a good reference for you to give you some information about some requirements that some universities in Australia need. And first of all, you should have these requirements. Then you will be able to submit your application. Submit your application and submit your application as a PhD student. So let me start. If you are a master graduate, which means you got your master graduation, your master certificate, now you are able to apply for Australian universities. There are two requirements that you should bear in mind, and before submitting your application to Australian universities, to one of them, you should bear in mind that we have two types of requirements: main requirements and subsidiary requirements, and I will elaborate which one of them for you. Main requirements are very important, which means without these requirements and without these criteria, you will not able to apply for Australian universities. So it is actually very important to have these requirements, and after that you are allowed to submit your application to actually one of Australian universities. So they are mandatory, they are obligatory, and without them you are not able to submit your application. So these are main requirements. Another type of requirements are subsidiary requirements, which means these are privilege requirements, which means again, after having main requirements, these subsidiary requirements helps you to actually have a better score in comparison with other students. So let me start from the first main requirements of universities. One of the very important criterion that you need is all the previous graduation certificates along with transcripts, which means if you want to submit your application, first of all, you should gather every previous graduation certificates of your actually studying way. For example, master certificate and transcript, and before that, bachelor transcript and certificate. And if by any chance you are not a citizen of English speaking country, you should bear in mind that you should translate all of these certificates into English. So again, I will emphasize that if you are not a citizen of English speaking countries, you should bear in mind that you should translate all these transcripts and certificates into English. So you should have these transcripts and these certificates of yours, for example, master and bachelor in English And this is one of the main requirements that you need before submitting your application into one of the Australian universities. So this is one of the main requirements. Another main requirement is that IELTS certificate. Again, if you are not a citizen of English speaking country, or if you live in a non-English speaking country, it is mandatory to take an IELTS test. It is an international test that everybody who is international student and wants to immigrate to English speaking countries or well-known universities all around the world, you should take IELTS certificate, and you should have your score, and this score shouldn't be below than 6.5 overall. So another main requirement for you as an international student is IELTS certificate, and without these IELTS certificate, you cannot, or you are not able to submit your application to one of the Australian universities. So this is another mandatory or compulsory thing that you should have. Another thing as a main requirement of universities is having some research background. Nowadays that you are watching this video, or if you want to submit your application as a PhD student, so it is obvious that you have your master certificate. So you are a master graduate. So as a master graduate, you should have at least one research background. For example, one ISI paper, or one chapter, or one book, or one conference, or one seminar. These are your research background. So as a master graduate, you should have at least one research background, and without having these research background, you are not able to submit your application to one of the Australian universities. So you should bear in mind it is another main requirement of universities. And the fourth one is finding a suitable mentor or supervisor or professor, in other words, and have an online meeting with him or her and getting acceptance from him or her. So another mandatory thing is that you should find a suitable professor or supervisor for yourself, and after that you will be able to submit your application to the university. So it is another main requirement. Without these main requirements, you are not able to submit your application. Another thing is that having a minimum GPA for some universities. For example, imagine you want to submit your application to Melbourne University. I think you should have at least 3.6 as a GPA for your master and for your bachelor, and it is the least GPA that you should have. And for some universities, I think G8 or group of 8 universities, you should have a minimum GPA, and without these minimum GPA, you are not able to submit your application. So all of these things that I told you are main requirements, and without these main requirements, again, I want to emphasize that you are not able to submit your application. But after having these main requirements, there are other requirements, and I call them privilege requirements or subsidiary requirements, which means without having these privilege requirements, again, you are able to submit your submit your application to these universities, but these privilege or subsidiary requirements are necessary for you for actually being able to win a fully funded scholarship, because it is a competition and there are other students from all across the world, and you should compete with them in this competition. So these are the criteria that the committee assess, and they will make a decision who is a better student and who can win the fully funded scholarship. So with these privilege requirements, you will better able to win the fully funded scholarship as a PhD student in one of the Australian universities. And these subsidiary or privilege requirements are: one, having more research background. As a master graduate, you should have at least one research background. But the more research background you have, the better or the high chance you have to get fully funded scholarship. What are these research backgrounds? For example, Q1 papers, books, chapters, or all of other research background that you have done so far. So the more research background you have, the high chance you have for getting a fully funded scholarship from one of the Australian universities. Another one or another privilege requirement is having a better GPA in your master or bachelor graduation certificate or transcript, which means, as you remember, I told you some of universities in Australia needs at least a minimum GPA, and another thing is that the better GPA you have, the higher chance you have to get your fully funded scholarship. So GPA is very, very important, and you should have a very good GPA in your master and bachelor. And this is another privilege requirement that you need to win the scholarship in this competition with other students. Another thing is that better support of professors or supervisors. For example, you found a very good supervisor, professor, and he is very, very well known and famous in Australia. And he told you, don't worry, I will support you and I will help you to win the scholarship in the committee, and I will emphasize your name and these kind of things. So this is another criterion that is a privilege requirement, and it can help you to win the fully funded scholarship in comparison with other students. And another one is not having educational gap, which means educational gap is very bad, and you should have actually continued your last or previous period of studying continually without any educational gap. So this is another criterion that you should have to win the fully funded scholarship. Okay, let's go to next slide, which means this slide, deadlines and stipend amounts. And you want to know, as a PhD student in one of the Australian universities, that okay, for example, you want to submit your application to one of the students, and you don't know what are the deadlines of these universities and what is the stipend amount of this university that you want to submit your application. So for each university, you should only look up these following phrases. For example, you want to submit your application to Melbourne University. The first phrase that you should look up is that University of Melbourne PhD scholarship deadline. It is very simple. It can help you to understand when is the deadline of the University of Melbourne exactly. So it is very simple, and you should only look up this phrase into Google and you will understand what is the deadline. For understanding how much our stipend amounts are, another phrase is that University of Melbourne or UNSW or Adelaide or other university that you want to submit, PhD scholarship stipend. So with looking up this phrase, you will understand how much you will get as a PhD student if you win the fully funded scholarship competition. So these two phrases can help you to understand what is the deadline and how much are the stipend amounts. Okay, thank you very much. Let's go to next slide. Okay. In this slide, I want to emphasize again one of the biggest mistakes that some PhD students actually, or some PhD applicants who want to submit their application, they make. Don't forget that the suitable supervisor's agreement is one of the factors or main factors that you can enter the competition with other students. As you remember, I told you in the first slide, you should find a suitable supervisor or professor, and this agreement of him or her is one of the main factors that you can enter the competition with other students from all across the world who they have gotten the similar agreement as you, but from other professors. So it is not a privilege requirement. It is a main requirement. Some students think that, oh, I found a very good professor and he is very famous, so I will win the fully funded scholarship and I will go to Australia. So no, it is a very, very big mistake, and you should bear in mind, it is a main factor. It is not a privilege factor. They must give you a cover letter after you held an online meeting or holding an online meeting with him or her. Then you must submit this document in your application. So after holding a meeting with this professor, and it is often an online meeting, and after that he must or she must give you an agreement letter or cover letter, and you should submit this document in your application. And it is another main document that you should have when you want to submit your application. And this letter is just a permission to apply for the scholarship, not anything else. It is just a permission, one of the main factors. Let's go to the next slide, and it is the last slide, and it is very important to emphasize this slide. Guys, all of the universities in Australia, thank God, they are based on meritocracy, which means the right student is selected based on merit. This meritocracy is only based on your graduation and research background, not based on religion or color or nationality or something else. So this is very good for all of the people from all across the world. So if you are, for example, a black person, or if you are a white person, or if you are Muslim or other kind of religious, so you are able to submit your application, and the only thing that they assess is your research background and your GPA and other things that I told you in previous slides. So this is meritocracy without which means this meritocracy is only based on your graduation and research background, not based on your religion. So as I told you, and I want to tell you again and emphasize it again, privilege criteria are very, very, very important. And again, I want to tell you, having more research background, which means Q1 papers as a first author name, or book or chapter or something other things, or having a better GPA in your master or bachelor graduation certificate, or having a better transcript, and not having educational gap, these are the criteria that we call them privilege criteria, and they will help you to win the scholarship as a fully funded in this competition in comparison with other students all around the world. And you should bear in mind, the better research background you have, the better GPA you have, the higher chance you will have to win the scholarship. And educational gap is a very bad thing that you shouldn't have it. Thank you very much for this amount of time that you have spent with me. If you have any question, please contact me. This is my email address, and don't hesitate to touch with me. Thank you very much, and bye for now.